The afternoon sun burned over the busy street. Cars moved fast, people walked in a hurry, and the city noise filled every corner. In the middle of that noise, a small dog wandered near the roadside. Its fur was messy, its steps shaky, and its eyes carried a mix of fear and hope. The dog looked weak, as if hunger and loneliness had been chasing it for days. Most people passed by without even noticing. For them, it was just another stray animal. But then, something happened that would change the entire mood of that street. A biker, rushing through the traffic, came too close to the dog. The loud roar of the engine echoed, and in a second the dog let out a painful cry. The biker had not stopped. He sped forward without turning back. People nearby froze for a moment. Some gasped, but no one moved. The helpless animal lay there, its body shaking, its small paws trying to crawl to safety. The silence that followed was louder than the city noise. Everyone had seen it, but everyone hesitated. Some were afraid of getting involved, some thought someone else would step forward. The seconds felt heavy, and the dog's faint whimper cut through the crowd like a knife. Then, from a distance, a man walked toward the scene. His steps were calm but filled with purpose. Dressed in simple clothes, with long hair falling around his face, he looked like any other passerby. Yet the moment he appeared, people began to whisper. Some recognized him immediately: Keanu Reeves. He had been walking quietly along the street, away from cameras, away from the world of fame. No one expected him to be there, and no one expected what he would do next. Keanu saw the dog, and without thinking twice, he rushed forward. The crowd's eyes followed him, as if they knew they were about to witness something rare. Kneeling beside the injured animal, Keanu's hands shook slightly as he touched the dog's head. His eyes softened, carrying a deep sadness, as though the pain of the dog entered his heart. He whispered something no one could hear, a gentle comfort only meant for the little creature trembling before him. People around stood frozen. They had watched the accident happen, but it was Keanu who stepped into the moment with no fear of judgment. The street, once filled with noise, now seemed to pause. Even the honking cars felt distant, as if time slowed down to watch this single act of kindness. One man from the crowd muttered, "Is that really him?" Another whispered, "He doesn't care who's watching." Others simply stared, their eyes wide, because they had expected someone famous like Keanu to walk away, to avoid attention. Instead, he knelt on the dirty road, holding a weak dog close to his chest. The dog's breathing was shallow. Its small eyes blinked as it felt the touch of someone who cared. For the first time in what seemed like forever, the animal wasn't invisible. Keanu's face showed no anger for the biker, no frustration toward the people who hesitated. What he showed was pure concern, the kind that comes only from a heart shaped by humility. Suspense filled the air. What would happen now? Would the dog survive? Would Keanu manage to help it in time? Every detail, every movement kept the people watching glued to the scene. Then came the twist, something no one expected. Keanu stood up with the dog carefully in his arms. He looked around at the silent crowd and asked in a calm voice, "Can someone help me get this little one to a vet?" For a moment, no one spoke. It was as if shame fell upon them. People who moments ago had done nothing now looked at each other, realizing they had been witnesses to suffering but not to action. One young woman stepped forward, tears in her eyes, and said, "I'll come with you." An old man nodded, adding, "There's a clinic just 2 blocks away." The atmosphere shifted completely. Strangers who had been silent now felt moved to act, inspired by the presence of a man who lived with kindness instead of pride. As Keanu began walking with the dog in his arms, the crowd slowly followed. Some whispered, some prayed, some simply walked in silence. It was no longer about a movie star on the street. It was about a man showing what it means to be human. And while the dog whimpered softly, its eyes stayed fixed on Keanu, as if it had found the first touch of safety in a long, lonely journey. This was only the beginning of a story that no one on that street would ever forget. The small crowd followed as Keanu carried the weak dog in his arms. Every step felt heavy, not because of the weight, but because of the responsibility he silently carried. His simple shirt was getting stained with dust and a faint trace of blood from the dog, but Keanu did not care. His eyes stayed forward, his focus only on saving the little life that had been left to suffer. The young woman who had offered to help walked close beside him. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Do you think it will survive?" Keanu glanced at the dog, then looked at her and replied softly, "We don't give up on life, not until the last breath." Those words struck her deeply. They weren't just about the dog, they were about hope itself. The old man who had mentioned the clinic walked ahead, clearing the path through the curious crowd. Shopkeepers peeked from their stores, drivers slowed down to watch, and whispers spread quickly. Some recognized Keanu, others didn't, but all could see the unusual sight. A world-famous actor, known for his quiet humility, walking the street like an ordinary man, carrying a broken creature that no one else had cared to touch. When they reached the small veterinary clinic, the doors were already open. The doctor inside looked up, startled to see the crowd entering. Keanu gently placed the dog on the table, his hands reluctant to let go. The dog's chest rose and fell faintly, each breath uneven. The doctor examined quickly, his face serious. It's weak, very weak. Loss of blood, possible internal injuries. It needs care immediately. Silence filled the room, the kind of silence that comes when life hangs on a fragile thread. Keanu stepped closer, his eyes locked on the little creature. "Please," he said softly, "do everything you can. I'll take responsibility." The doctor nodded, moved by the sincerity in Keanu's voice. He began the treatment, and as he worked, the people stood around watching. Some prayed silently, others wiped their eyes. The young woman who had followed whispered, "Why does he care so much? He doesn't even know the dog." An older man in the crowd answered quietly, "That's the point. Real kindness is when you don't need a reason." Keanu stood quietly, hands folded, eyes fixed on the dog. He did not pull out his phone, he did not try to draw attention. He was simply there, present, grounded, giving his heart to a creature that had no voice. And then the unexpected twist came. As the doctor cleaned the wounds, he found a small collar buried in the dog's dirty fur. It was worn out and almost broken, but a faint engraving was still visible. The name Buddy. The moment the word was read aloud, something shifted in the room. This dog wasn't just a stray, it had once belonged to someone. Keanu bent down, touched the collar gently, and whispered, "You're not alone, Buddy. You had someone once, and you have us now." The young woman's tears fell openly. The crowd felt a wave of emotion they couldn't explain. It was no longer only about saving a dog, it was about rediscovering forgotten compassion in a world that often moved too fast to notice pain. Suddenly, the door burst open. A teenage boy stood there, out of breath, his eyes wide with shock. "Buddy," he cried out. The room turned toward him. His clothes were worn, his face pale, and his hands shook as he pointed at the dog. "That's my dog, that's Buddy." Gasps filled the clinic. People exchanged looks of disbelief. The story had just taken another turn, one that no one expected. Keanu looked at the boy with calm eyes and asked gently, "Is he yours?" The boy nodded quickly, tears falling. "We lost him 2 weeks ago. I thought he was gone forever. He's all I have." The doctor paused, the treatment still ongoing, the dog still fighting for breath. Keanu placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "Then we'll fight for him together." The suspense grew heavier. Would Buddy survive long enough to return to the arms of the boy who had been searching? Would kindness be enough to rewrite a story that had begun with cruelty? The crowd leaned forward, every heart tied to the fragile breaths of the injured dog. And as the doctor continued his work, Keanu's presence seemed to hold everyone together, reminding them that even in moments of darkness, there is always light when someone chooses compassion. The clinic was filled with silence except for the sound of instruments and the faint breathing of Buddy. The boy stood frozen near the table, his small hands trembling as he tried to reach for his dog. His eyes were red, his voice cracked. "Please save him, he's my only friend." Keanu gently guided the boy closer, bending down to his level. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ryan," the boy whispered. Keanu looked straight into his eyes. "Ryan, listen to me. Buddy is fighting. The best thing we can do right now is to be strong for him. Can you do that?" The boy nodded weakly, wiping his tears with the back of his sleeve. Keanu placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, a gesture that gave the boy a strange kind of calm. The doctor worked with deep focus. He stitched a wound on Buddy's side, cleaned the dirt, and gave fluids to restore the lost strength. The dog whimpered softly, his tail moving just a little, as if responding to the voices around him. The crowd that had followed from the street stayed in silence, watching with heavy hearts. And then the doctor looked up. "He's stable for now," he said carefully. "But the next 24 hours are critical. If he makes it through the night, he has a real chance." Relief washed over the room, but it was mixed with fear. Keanu let out a slow breath, whispering, "Good boy, keep fighting." Ryan stepped closer to the table, touching Buddy's paw gently. "I told you I'd find you," he said in a shaky voice. "Please don't leave me now." The dog blinked, his weak eyes fixed on the boy, and for the first time a tiny spark of life appeared in them. But the moment of peace didn't last. The door of the clinic opened again, and to everyone's shock, the biker walked in. The same man who had hurt Buddy stood there with his helmet in hand, looking uneasy as the crowd turned on him with anger in their eyes. "That's him," someone whispered harshly. "He just drove off like nothing happened." Faces filled with disgust. Some stepped forward as if ready to confront him. The air grew heavy with tension, like a storm about to break. Ryan's eyes widened with rage, his young voice shaking. "You hurt Buddy, you almost killed him." The biker lowered his head, his voice low. I didn't mean to. I panicked." The crowd erupted with angry murmurs, but Keanu raised his hand gently, asking them to wait. His calm presence held everyone still. Then in his steady voice he asked, "Why did you come back?" The biker looked ashamed, his hands shaking. "I couldn't stop thinking about it. I saw him in the mirror. I kept hearing that sound. I was wrong to leave." His eyes dropped to Ryan, then to Buddy. "I came to say I'm sorry." The boy's face twisted with pain and anger. "Sorry doesn't fix him," he cried. Keanu placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder before he could say more. "You're right," Keanu said softly. "Sorry doesn't erase pain, but sometimes sorry is the first step to making things right." The room grew quiet again. People didn't expect forgiveness, not in that moment. They expected Keanu to be furious, to scold the man. Instead, his words carried weight, a reminder that kindness does not mean weakness. The biker took a deep breath and said, "Let me pay for his treatment. It's the least I can do." The doctor looked at Keanu, then at Ryan. Keanu nodded slowly. "Helping now is better than running away again. But remember, it's not money that will heal the scars. It's the choices you make after this day." Ryan's small hands clenched. He looked at Keanu, then at the biker. "If Buddy lives, you have to promise me something," he said bravely. "Never hurt another animal again, ever." The biker's eyes watered, and he nodded. "I promise." Keanu placed his hand gently on Ryan's head. "That's strength," he whispered. "Forgiveness takes more courage than anger." The crowd that had once been filled with bitterness began to soften. Some nodded, others lowered their eyes in reflection. People had come expecting drama, but what they witnessed was something far more powerful, a moment of humility and redemption unfolding right in front of them. But just as the atmosphere began to calm, Buddy's body shook suddenly. The monitor beeped and the doctor rushed back to the table. "He's crashing again," the doctor shouted. Gasps filled the room. Ryan screamed, "Buddy!" Keanu moved quickly to hold him back gently, his calm voice trying to steady the storm in the boy's heart. The crowd leaned forward, their breaths caught, their eyes wide, waiting to see if the little life they had all come to care for would hold on or fade away. The clinic filled with panic as the monitor beeped wildly. Buddy's small body trembled, his breath shallow and broken. The doctor shouted instructions, nurses rushed for supplies, and the boy screamed for his dog. Ryan tried to push forward, tears streaming, but Keanu held him gently yet firmly, whispering, "Stay strong, don't lose hope. Let them fight for him." The boy shook his head, crying hard. "He can't die, not now. I just found him again." His voice cracked like glass, piercing the hearts of everyone in the room. The biker who had returned stood frozen in guilt, his helmet slipping from his hands. Whispers of the crowd filled the air. Some said the dog would not make it. Others prayed silently. The tension was unbearable, as though the whole world had shrunk into that tiny clinic room where a fragile life hung on the edge. Keanu knelt down in front of Ryan so the boy would look into his eyes. "Listen to me," he said softly but firmly. "You need to talk to Buddy. Let him hear your voice. He needs to know you are here. Your love might be stronger than any medicine." Ryan's body shook, but he nodded. He stepped closer, Keanu's hand steadying him, and whispered near Buddy's ear, "It's me, Ryan. Please don't leave me. You're my only family. I'll never let you go again. Fight, Buddy, fight for me." The room went silent. The boy's words floated like a prayer. For a moment, nothing happened. The doctor worked quickly, sweat on his forehead, whispering urgent instructions. Then a faint movement, Buddy's paw twitched. His breathing, though weak, steadied just slightly. The monitor's wild beeping slowed. Gasps of relief spread through the room. The doctor exhaled deeply. "He's responding. It's working. Keep talking to him." Tears rolled down Ryan's cheeks as he continued. "We'll play in the park again. I'll share my food with you. I'll never leave you behind. Just stay with me, Buddy." Keanu placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder, his eyes soft yet filled with quiet strength. The crowd watched in awe, many with tears in their eyes. What they were witnessing was not just medical care, it was the power of love keeping life alive. But the story didn't end there. Just as relief started to ease the fear, the doctor turned serious again. "He needs proper care for the night. My clinic is small and the equipment here is limited. If we don't move him to the city hospital now, we might lose this chance. A wave of worry spread again. The hospital was far and the dog was fragile. Transporting him would be a risk. The biker who had stood silently in shame suddenly spoke. "I have a bike, it's fast, I can take him." The room stiffened. Ryan glared at him with anger. "You already hurt him once. I'll never let you near him again." The tension was sharp, the air thick, but Keanu raised his hand gently and spoke with calm authority. "Sometimes the one who caused harm can also be the one who helps heal. But it has to come with sincerity, not guilt. Ryan, the choice is yours. Do you trust him this time?" Ryan looked torn. His small chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Finally, he shook his head and whispered, "I don't trust him." Keanu nodded slowly. "Then we find another way." Without hesitation, Keanu turned to the doctor. "I'll arrange a car, he won't make it on a bike. He needs safety, not speed." The crowd began to murmur, some offering help. A woman stepped forward. "My brother has a van nearby, we can use it." Hope sparked again. The boy clutched Keanu's hand, whispering, "Please don't leave us." Keanu leaned down and said softly, "I won't, not until Buddy is safe." As they prepared to move the dog, the biker stepped back, tears in his eyes. He realized trust could not be forced. It had to be earned through actions, not words. With the van waiting outside, the small group carefully lifted Buddy, wrapping him gently to protect his wounds. Keanu himself carried one side, his focus steady. Ryan stayed close, his little hands gripping the blanket as if his love alone could shield Buddy from pain. The crowd parted as they walked out, some whispering prayers, others filming quietly, but all feeling they had witnessed something greater than fame, greater than anger. They had seen humility, forgiveness, and love woven together in a way that shook their hearts. And as the van doors closed, Keanu looked at Ryan and said, "This is not the end. This is just the hardest part of the journey. Are you ready?" The boy nodded through his tears. "I'll never give up on him." The van engine started, and with Keanu, Ryan, the doctor, and Buddy inside, the vehicle pulled away into the night. Every eye watched it leave, every heart pounding, knowing the real test was yet to come. The van moved through the city streets, its headlights cutting through the night. Inside, the air was thick with silence and fear. Ryan sat on the floor of the van, holding Buddy's paw tightly, whispering soft words into his ear. "You're going to be okay. You just have to stay with me. I'm right here." Beside him, Keanu sat quietly, his eyes never leaving the fragile dog. His calm presence filled the van, as if he was carrying everyone's hope on his shoulders. The doctor kept checking Buddy's breathing, giving small updates. "He's stable but weak. We must keep moving fast." Ryan looked at Keanu with desperate eyes. "What if he doesn't make it?" Keanu leaned closer, his voice gentle but strong. "Then at least he knew love until the very end. But I believe he will fight because he knows you're waiting for him. Never let go of hope, Ryan. Hope is what keeps us alive when everything else falls apart." Those words sank into the boy's heart. He nodded, tears still rolling down his face, but now there was a spark of strength in his eyes. The van hit a bump and Buddy whimpered. Ryan gasped, holding him tighter while the doctor steadied the dog carefully. Keanu placed a hand on Ryan's back, steadying him as well. "Stay calm," he said softly. "He feels your fear. Give him your courage instead." Minutes felt like hours. The hospital lights finally came into view, shining in the distance like a beacon of hope. The van pulled into the emergency entrance, and nurses rushed out with a stretcher. Keanu and the doctor helped lift Buddy gently, while Ryan ran beside them, refusing to let go of his paw even for a second. Inside the hospital, everything moved fast. Doctors examined Buddy, preparing equipment, whispering urgent words. Ryan stood by the door, his small body trembling, his hands shaking as if the weight of the world was on him. Keanu stayed beside him, his quiet voice anchoring the boy in the storm. "Breathe, Ryan. Whatever happens, you are not alone." After what felt like an eternity, one of the doctors stepped forward. "He has internal bleeding. We need surgery right away. It's risky, but it's his only chance." Ryan's heart nearly stopped. He looked at Keanu with wide, frightened eyes. "What if he doesn't wake up?" Keanu crouched down so their eyes met. "Sometimes courage means trusting the people who can help. Your love has carried him this far, now let them carry him the rest of the way. Trust, Ryan, trust and pray." The boy clung to Keanu's hand, nodding weakly. As Buddy was wheeled into surgery, Ryan whispered one last time, "Please fight, Buddy, come back to me." Then the doors closed. The waiting began. The clock ticked slowly, every second dragging like a heavy weight. Ryan sat in the chair, his head against Keanu's arm, unable to stop his tears. The biker who had followed them to the hospital stood at a distance, his face pale, his guilt heavy. He didn't dare speak, but his presence lingered like a shadow. The silence was broken when Ryan looked up at Keanu and asked, "Why are you helping us? You don't even know me." Keanu's eyes softened. He thought for a moment before answering. Because kindness is never wasted. When we see pain, we have two choices: walk away or walk closer. Walking closer can change everything, not just for them, but for us too. Maybe life put me here tonight for a reason. Ryan looked at him with wide eyes, as if he was hearing something far bigger than he could yet understand. Time passed, the doors remained shut, and suspense tightened like a rope. Then at last the surgeon walked out. The room froze as every eye locked on him. "The surgery was successful," the doctor said slowly, "but he's not safe yet. The next few hours will decide everything." Ryan leapt from his chair, hope flooding his face. "So he's alive?" "Yes," the doctor nodded. "He's alive, but fragile." Tears of relief poured down the boy's cheeks. He buried his face into Keanu's chest, sobbing uncontrollably. Keanu wrapped an arm around him, holding him steady, whispering softly, "You see, Ryan, hope never lies." The crowd that had gathered in the hospital corridor exhaled together. Some clapped softly, some wiped their eyes. Even the biker lowered his head, whispering to himself, "Thank you, God." But just as the relief began to spread, another unexpected twist appeared. The hospital administrator approached with a stern look. "Who will take responsibility for the costs of the surgery and the care ahead? This treatment is expensive, and it won't end tonight." The boy froze, his face pale. His voice broke. I don't have money. I barely eat sometimes. Buddy is all I have." The silence returned, heavier than before. All eyes turned to Keanu, waiting for his answer. The corridor was heavy with silence. The administrator's words hung in the air like a cold weight. "Who will take responsibility for the costs?" Ryan's face fell pale, his small hands clenched into fists. He whispered, "Please don't take him away. I don't care if I have nothing. I'll do anything, just don't stop helping him." His voice cracked, filled with desperation and fear that tore through the hearts of everyone listening. People in the hallway shifted uncomfortably. Some looked down, ashamed of their own helplessness. The biker stood in the corner, guilt burning on his face. No one dared to speak, no one except Keanu. He stepped forward, calm but firm, his voice steady. "Put everything on me." The administrator blinked. "Sir, the costs could be very high. Surgery, medicine, recovery, follow-ups." Keanu interrupted gently but without hesitation. "I don't care how much. He deserves the chance to live, and the boy deserves not to lose the only family he has left. Send me the bills." The corridor froze. The crowd gasped softly. Some had tears in their eyes, not because of the money, but because of the humility with which he said it. There was no pride in his voice, no show of power, only simple humanity. Ryan stared at him, stunned. "You'd do that? For me?" Keanu bent down to his level, looking directly into the boy's teary eyes. "For you and for Buddy. Sometimes we don't choose the family we are born into, but we can choose to be there for each other. Tonight, you're not alone." The boy threw his arms around Keanu, hugging him tightly, sobbing into his chest. Keanu held him gently, his eyes glistening with emotion, but his face calm, strong, and full of warmth. The biker stepped forward then, his voice breaking. "I want to help too. I can't undo what I did, but I'll pay what I can. And I'll spend my time at shelters, helping animals. I don't want to be the man who turns away anymore." The crowd looked at him, some with suspicion, some with a faint nod of approval. Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Change doesn't happen in one word. It happens in every action after. If you mean it, prove it not to us, but to yourself." Time passed slowly that night. Ryan refused to leave Buddy's side. Keanu stayed as well, quietly watching, quietly guarding. Hours turned into dawn, and the first light of morning slipped through the hospital windows. And then the moment everyone had been waiting for came. Buddy opened his eyes. A soft, weak bark escaped his throat. His tail moved just a little. Ryan gasped, his whole body shaking with joy. "Buddy, you made it!" he cried, hugging his dog carefully. Tears of relief poured from his eyes as the dog nuzzled against him, weak but alive. The crowd outside cheered softly, some clapping, some simply smiling with tears. Nurses and doctors watched in awe, reminded of why they had chosen their work. Ryan looked up at Keanu, his voice filled with gratitude too big for his small body. Thank you for saving him, for saving me." Keanu smiled faintly, brushing the boy's hair back. "You saved him, Ryan. It was your voice, your love, your fight that kept him alive. Never forget that." The boy hugged Buddy again, his heart finally at peace. As the hospital began to settle, people slowly left, carrying with them a story they would never forget. They had come expecting tragedy, but they left with hope. a hope planted by a man who had shown that kindness is stronger than fame, stronger than anger, stronger even than fear. Later, as Keanu quietly prepared to leave, Ryan ran after him. "Will I see you again?" Keanu bent down, smiled softly, and whispered, "You don't need to see me to remember what happened here. Every time you choose kindness, I'll be with you." With that, he walked out into the morning light, simple as he had arrived, leaving behind not just a healed dog, but a healed boy, a changed crowd, and a memory that would live forever. The story of the biker, the dog, the boy, and the man who chose compassion would echo far beyond that street, reminding everyone that true greatness is not in what we achieve, but in how we care for those who cannot fight for themselves.